guys, it's Carissa from the Community Library, and today we are celebrating National Astronomy Week. Got my Universe of Story shirt. We are going to be making these super cute constellations that look like they're in the night sky. So a couple things you're going to need. You're going to need some acrylic paints. I have this giant tub of blue and a giant tub of black. I've also got teal and a different shade of blue just to give it a little more of a night sky kind of look. You're going to need some white later. I went with a larger size bristle paintbrush because I painted and then I used it in the flicking motion to do my white stars. You can see my nice little white splatter on there. I recommend a box for splatter. You don't want to get too crazy. Mini canvases, I actually bought this from the Dollar General for $1, so this works out really great. You're going to need some thread or embroidery floss, or I'm actually using really thin yarn and needle. Now I have two colors of yarn. I have a silver and a gold here. I went ahead and I did everything in silver first, and then I added a couple extra lines to each of my stars on the bigger points to make them stand out in the gold, just for a little bit of an extra pop. So, and then you're going to need to pick a constellation. I have crudely drawn the Big Dipper, and I am using a felt tip marker to mark on my canvas once it's painted where I'm going to be sewing. So we're going to go ahead and get jumped in. I'm going to grab my brush here and my canvas. I mixed a little bit of the black and this bright blue to make kind of a nice dark blue, and we're just going to brush that on. And I mean, really we're just looking to coat it, because we're going to put a few coats on. Just to get the right look. I do suggest wearing clothing you don't mind getting acrylic paint on, or that, you know, are easily washed. I did the practice one yesterday, and I don't know how many times I ended up with paint on my clothes, so this can be a messy project, I'm warning you now. A little space for my poor finger who needs to hang on to this. So I've gone ahead and gone in with my blue. As you can see, it's pretty patchy. I'm going to let it dry. Go in with another coat of the blue black, maybe streak a little black in there, and I'll meet you back up once it dries. Okay, so we've gone ahead and let that first layer dry. Mine is still a little tacky, but that's okay. We're not worried about it. So I'm going to go in with just a little bit more black just to darken it a little bit. I want to give it a little more of that nice night sky look, you know. On the edges, leave a space for my poor finger. I mean, I'm already covered in paint, so I don't know if it really matters at this point. Probably not. All right, and while it's still just a little wet from that paint that we just added, I'm going to go ahead and get some of my lighter blues, and not a lot. We're just doing a little. Maybe. There we go. And I'm just going to take it and I'm going to stamp it out, kind of mix it in with the black that's left over on my brush. And I'm just going to brush it in a little bit and really just blend it in with the little bit of wet paint that we have on there. Just so it gives it a little bit of a color effect. You can see the top is a little lighter there. And that's going to give you the bit of variation in the black tone, making it look like, you know, it's a just recently darkened sky. And not a whole dark. And just play around with it. Maybe you feel like you've got too much of a bright blue. Maybe you want it a little brighter. You can play with it. You can always go back in with a little more dark color. I'm going to get a little bit more of my dark color and maybe a little more of just that bright blue. Get my edges off. With it. It's got some nice different tones in it, not just solid black, a little more black with some blues, give it a little look like it's more of a night sky and not just a solid piece of black canvas. So we're going to go ahead and let that completely dry, and then we're going to move on to the splattering with the white paint. I'm going to go rinse my brush out because it is very blue and black, so take this time to rinse your brushes out once it dries. Okay, so we've mixed our blacks and our blues, we put a second coat on to cover it. We're gonna now put it in the box and we're going to sprinkle it with some white paint. We're gonna drop it in the box. It's okay. It's how these things go. I come to work prepared to be covered in paint by the end of the day. With every project. Doesn't matter if I'm using paint. I prepared to come to be covered in paint. So I'm just going to go ahead, put some on my brush here, and I'm going to be pulling back so that it sprays out, and I'm going to do it fairly close to my piece, mostly so that the paint stays in the box. I don't really want paint on the carpet. I'm not prepared to clean the carpet. Not today. And just kind of flick the paint at it until you like the look. You've got as many little sparkly stars as you want. We're gonna dunk this in the water. I'm gonna push this out of the box. And we've got some nice stars on it. So we're gonna go ahead and let that dry, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna, see, I'm getting a little paint finger. We're gonna mark our constellation and then we're gonna sew it. Okay, so we've gone ahead, we've let the white paint splatter dry so that we've got our stars. I've got my sticky note here with my Big Dipper on it. I've got my felt marker. So I'm gonna go ahead, guess that corner wasn't quite dry. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna mark out on here where I want my needle and thread to go. Here. Okay. Now I'm going to go in first with some silver. Like I said, I did this first on the other one, and then I went ahead and I did the gold. So I'm going to just make a nice knot here on the end so that it's going to catch when I put it through the canvas. A couple knots. You want it thick enough that it's not going to pull through. And now you're just gonna look at your design and you're gonna be like, okay, so where's a good starting point? Where's somewhere where I'm gonna end, and then start there. So I'm gonna start up at the top and work my way down and around. So what I do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna just make a cross shape. And those are going to be the bigger points. And then, so I've got my first cross shape, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave a little space in between there, and I'm going to put my needle through, and we're going to go down to my next point and put my needle back through so that we have a nice line. So it looks like it's been outlined, so we know where our constellation is. And then at our next point, we're just going to go ahead and make another cross. And we're leaving space again, so that we can make it look like it's been a constellation that's been outlined. And then we're going to go down to our next points and continue doing that, so that we continue making our little crosses and our lines. You can do this all in one color. Maybe you're like, nah, I just want to embroider it. I've got this really great thread or yarn or whatever thinner string-like object you have. And you're like, I just want to do it all in one color. That's fine. Like I said, I found that it really helped mine stand out. If I did the two colors. But this is also your project and you don't have to do that. This is also a precursor, like you could really take this and run with it and do some embroidery on painted canvas. I think that would be really cool, as long as you knew that there are some limits to canvas. Obviously, you poke it too full of holes and it's going to begin to fall apart. Now, especially with these mini canvases that I picked up from the Dollar General, I would highly recommend not doing anything too complicated. I know I looked at quite a few different patterns for Orion because you can add other stars into it. Especially if you were going to do some of the, I was looking at like some of the other constellations that were like animals, to be recognizable. Some of them had a lot of stars, and I thought for at least the smaller canvases, that's a little difficult. Alright, so I've got the first part sewn. You can see my dipper here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just make a knot. I'm going to put it under one of my other sewn ends here. Just to tie it off so that it's not going to come undone. scissors. I forgot to grab a pair. But then we're just gonna tie it off. So we've got our little dipper. I'm gonna go ahead and go in with this this gold yarn here, and I'm just gonna go over. So I made a bunch of X's. I'm gonna make another set of X's, laying over the other direction, so you can still see some of the silver peeking out from the bigger points on the constellation, but they'll look a little fancier. So I'm gonna try this. And it helps them to stand out and give it a look of like, oh hey, here's a constellation. Especially it makes it stand out from the other color that I have that is, pull it right back out. That's making it look like a constellation. Once you finish with that second color, you can tie that off as well. Make sure we're nice and tied off here. I do about 2 knots when I tie off, just to make sure we're okay. Snip it, and there we've got our little constellation. So now I've got 2 little cute constellations. So I hope you guys had fun. Not a hard craft, doesn't take you too long, and I hope you guys enjoy National Astronomy Week. See you next time.